Tasmai Shri Guve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Sthapadamyena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Nanati Swavanantikam Namam Vishnupada Kashapisa Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Pashatari Shatarine Vanchakapatu Visha Kibasanuvevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you very much for coming together on a Monday evening. Often Mondays is a bit of a sleepy day. People had their dose of Krishna consciousness on the weekend. So just the fact that you are here shows that you are eager and sincere. Yes. Okay, thank you, and thank you for opening your home and welcoming us. Very nice. Yeah, so our today's topic is the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. So let us explore a little bit what this false ego is doing. Let me share, maybe to begin with, some thoughts and realizations which inspired me to give attention to this topic, right? Because for many years I've been conducting holy name retreats, and at one point I started realizing that actually we can make so much endeavors to get on deeper levels of chanting, but if we don't parallel to that, try to dissolve and subdue the false ego also, then our endeavors to chant can be compared to an elephant taking bath. You know? Do you have anything to distract her and occupy her? You know, you need some little toys or something. She doesn't play with toys. Because we can't expect kids to just sit there, you know, for 2 hours and say make no noise. So we have to keep them occupied at least with some sweets or some balls or whatever, you know. Yes. Yeah, so in any case, this was my realization that if we don't do parallel to our endeavors to chant, also work on the false ego, then our endeavors are like an elephant taking bath. So elephant taking bath, what does he do? As soon as he comes out, he takes the trunk and throws all this dust and dirt back on his back. And that's exactly what we do, right? That we just slide back into false ego patterns of behaviors, you know, and we are trapped there, and we actually can't move forward, and we can't receive the benefit of chanting the holy name, because that's why Mahaprabhu says, Chinarapi Sunichina. So we have to be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. Only then we can actually chant the holy name, you know. So, and being humble and tolerant, that's all about the false ego, you know. If the false ego is not subdued, we cannot be humble and tolerant, you know. Yeah, so after so many years of conducting holy name retreats, I started realizing this, that actually we have to parallel also give this false ego topic some attention. And then also, it is interesting that the bigger the false ego is, the more prominent and dominant it is, the less we can actually see it. You would think it's the other way around, right? That if it is more prominent, it is more obvious to see and recognize. But no, it's just the other way. And I want to share some little episode in this regard. I know one Mataji in Europe who has a very prominent, dominant false ego. And as a result of that, she always gets herself into some strife, some tension, some conflict, some trouble. So, and at some point she was a little frustrated about this, and she was turning towards me and, opened her heart a little bit. So I thought, well, maybe let me try and explain to her what is actually the problem. So I was very careful because I know the false ego doesn't like to be addressed. So I was carefully saying, well, this false ego always gets us into trouble and creates our miseries. And the way she responded was very interesting. She said, what? False ego? And she was laughing. Come on, what's that? I don't have that. And I thought, oh my God, how is it possible, when a person is so tormented by their false ego, and then she laughs it off saying, I don't have that. And I was speechless. I was shocked, And all I answered was, I wish I could say this about myself, that I don't have a false ego. That's all I said. I didn't say anything more than that, because I knew if people, are like that they cannot hear, they are not open to even accept anything, Otherwise she would have asked, oh, what do you mean? Or something, but she was just laughing it off. I don't have that. So, and that's exactly how the false ego works. It blocks the ears, it blocks the intelligence. We can't hear, we can't understand. And yeah, it actually takes some little bit of purification to realize how this false ego gets into our way. And it's interesting, the more we become purified, the more we realize how subtle it is and how it almost every day somehow it gets into our way, pushes us to say things and do things which we shouldn't say and do. So it is so subtle. And that's why we often miss it, And I remember some other time I was giving a similar introductory seminar in Vrindavan just before Kartik about this. And there's one Mataji, I know her for many years. She's been at least 15, 20 years in Krishna consciousness, seriously practicing. She lives in Vrindavan and all that. So, and then after this little seminar, she came up to me and said, oh, thank you, Mataji, for giving this seminar. Now I realize I actually have this false ego, And she was saying, before I always thought this is just some theoretical, technical, philosophical point there, which has no relevance for me, And that's often what people think. And then I started realizing, this topic deserves some more attention, because very easily we can do the opposite in Krishna consciousness of what we should be doing. We can feed and boost the false ego. We can massage each other's false egos. We get attached to title, position, and power and all that, But what we should be doing is we should be dissolving, subduing the false ego, So, and all in Krishna consciousness, in the name of Krishna consciousness. the opposite is going on, and we can completely miss the target, you know. And we may think we are doing the right thing, but actually we don't, you know. Yes. And then we are surprised if after 35, 40 years, we are still attached to title and position and all that, you know. But the Shastra is promising, you know, detachment. So I've been scratching my head and thinking, well, what are we doing wrong? Something is missing, you know? Yeah, so all these thoughts and observations and little episodes, yeah, inspired me to just give this topic more attention. And it's not that I sit down and say, okay, let's put together a seminar or a book or something, but somehow, in my case at least, these topics, they naturally grow and develop. And I may just give one class about a topic and then another class about something similar. And then I realize, oh, hey, that actually complements each other and builds up on each other. And then very naturally, organically, a whole course evolves, you know, over years. So all my courses and books are, you know, developed like this, you know, and also this False Ego seminar. I can't even remember how I started it or something, you know, because it just grew over time, you know. Yes. Yeah, so much just as a little introduction to the topic. So Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you, and Mataji, thank you for coming. There's some chairs there. Yeah, so let us begin now by understanding what the false ego is. So as we know, the soul is covered by a gross body made from earth, water, fire, air, ether. And then there is also the subtle body there made from mind, intelligence, and here we have it, false ego, right? And as we probably also know, at the moment of death, we leave the gross body behind, and the soul is transported with the subtle body into its next existence. So, and if we want to get out of this material world, the subtle body of mind, intelligence, false ego has to be completely transformed and spiritualized. All the material aspects have to be replaced with spiritual attachments and desires and experiences and. So this is quite some work. We require some internal work for this, you know? It doesn't just happen automatically just by time going by. As I was mentioning, we can very easily automatically do the opposite of what we should be doing, you know? Yes. So, yeah, so that's the situation. So the same subtle body of mind, intelligence, false ego, we have been carrying with us for many, many lifetimes. So there's so many impressions and desires and attachments stored. We can imagine it like some computer chip or something. So much information is stored there from previous lifetimes. So we carry quite a bit of baggage there with us, you know. So, and all that has to be dissolved and worked through and thrown overboard if we want to make this life our last life. And another interesting thing is, in the same way, like we said, gross body is made from earth, water, fire, air, ether. So you show me, where is the earth here? Where's the water? Where's the fire? Where's the air, ether? You can't separate these elements, actually. They're all mixed and, you know, yes. And in a similar way, I understand this also to be in the subtle body, because mind, intelligence, false ego, they influence each other backwards and forwards and, you know, so you can't just pinpoint it, oh, that's the mind, that's the intelligence, that's the false ego. But no, they're all mixed together, you know, and they affect each other backwards and forwards, you know. So, but one interesting thing is, because the other day we had a session on chanting, and I think I mentioned it there, that very often for example, when we chant our japa on the beads, so very often what we think to be the wandering mind and the uncontrolled mind, we actually discover that behind the mind is the false ego that uses the mind and intelligence as tools to get that gratification, what the false ego is pushing us for, So, yeah, as we get a little more deeper insights how this false ego functions, we realize that actually it's not so much the mind, but the false ego uses the mind as a tool. And ultimately, it's the false ego that takes us for a ride here, Yeah, so interesting to understand, because false ego is contaminating the intelligence, it's contaminating the mind, and they both feed back the false ego, and like that, it is going backwards and forwards. Yes. Yes. So, and also interestingly to observe how the false ego starts kicking in already at young age. Whoever has children, I'm sure you have that experience. I remember once I was visiting a family and their daughter was 1 year. She couldn't talk, but she could walk. So while I was speaking to the parents, she started getting all her toys into the lounge room. And I didn't give it so much importance. I thought, all right, fair enough. She wants to play here or something. But then the mother said, she's just showing off her toys because you are here. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's how it starts already at that age. We want to show off. Oh, give us a break, false ego already kicking in, that because the toys are like the first possessions of a child, my toys are so special. And because they're my toys, that's why I am so special, yes. Oh my God. So it starts already at that young age, maybe probably even before then, kids like to make some tantrums and, try to win the ego battle there, So, oh yeah, you often see it, So, yes. So basically, false ego means that we think ourselves to be something which we are not. That's in a nutshell what the false ego does. It makes us think to be something that we are not, And if there's a false ego, then obviously there also has to be the real ego, right? So the real ego is that we understand our eternal position of being insignificant, tiny little servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Jiva Srupa Krishna Nityadas in Bengali, That's a statement that, yes, we are all eternal spirit souls, servant of Krishna. That's our true position. Of course, non-devotees, they don't talk about false ego, they just talk about the ego, but they actually mean the false ego. They don't even know about the real ego, that we are eternal servant of the Lord. They don't know that. So whenever they use ego, they mean the false ego, right? And we as a rule also, sometimes we say false ego, sometimes we just cut it short and say ego, but yeah, we're talking about this phenomenon that we think ourselves to be something which we are not. So starts at young age. I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I'm Indian, Russian, German, American, whatever. So, and then as we grow, we accept so many more designations, upadhis, we call them in Sanskrit, you know. So then we are a student, I'm a medical student, I'm an IT student, and engineering student, and. So then we may get married, I'm husband, I'm wife, then I'm mother, I'm father, and. So they are all roles we are playing. And of course, it doesn't stop when we come to Krishna consciousness. It continues there too. I'm a brahmachari, I'm a grhastha, I'm the head pujari, I'm a Sankirtan devotee, I'm the head cook, I'm the temple president, and, you know. So they are all roles we are playing, like we are wearing hats or caps at certain times. You know, we have different caps or hats for different occasions, or the warm one for winter and the summer one for against the sun or whatever. So hopefully we are not identifying with a hat, even though some people may also do that. You know, if that hat is so special and unique and it becomes a part of me, and then when we lose it, we are pained. Now I lost a part of myself. Yeah. So, but yeah, so we have all different roles we are playing, right? So at home, we have our roles, or when we visit our parents, we play a different role. Or when we go to work in the office, so there we play another role. Then at the temple, we again have another role. So we all have so many roles, and we should have them. We have to have them. But yes, we do identify with them. That's the problem, that we forget that our real identity is eternal servant and not the role we play, right? So now let me ask you, why do you think do we identify with these roles? How does this identification come about? Any suggestions? Yeah, we are responsible, but we could also be that a servant, you know. So what is the crucial thing that makes us identify with it? Yeah, ignorance is one point, but then there's also another one. How does attachment come about? Somebody? Exactly. It gives us some feeling of importance, especially that we are somebody, you know, some little recognition, some importance in this world. And that's exactly the gratification which the false ego is hankering for and pushing us for, you know. False ego is like some entity telling us, always whispering some nonsense into our ears. You are so great, you are so special and unique, and nobody is as smart as you are. And you have to let the world know that your idea is the best. And you are right. You know, this whole thing of who is right, who is wrong. It's a real ego thing. I'm right, you know, and it was my idea. And yeah, so that's exactly what the false ego is whispering into our ears. And these roles, they do all give us some little feeling of importance, especially if we don't accept them as humble, insignificant servant, you know. Yes. Yeah, so that's the problem. And therefore we become attached and we identify with them, right? So now let's do just a 2-minute exercise. Let's turn to our neighbor and share which is your favorite hat. That when you, the thought of having to give it up is worse than death. Right? Share. I'm sure you all have some hat like that. Just quickly share with your neighbors. You, Prabhu, you go and share with him. Just 2 minutes. Okay, Guru Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Yes, actually, I am a mother. That hat is a pretty big one, you know? Yes, people are pretty attached to that one, you know? Because it's very clear, because as a mother, one has to sacrifice so much, you know? In many ways, more than the father, just going through pregnancy, childbirth, you know, and then that it's almost a sacred connection between child and mother, you know. So the mother sacrifices so much, you know, and then, but then when the child is around 15, 16, she has to take off this hat of I'm the mother. And she has to put on another hat, I'm the friend. Yes, yes. And it's difficult. I always observe this, how mothers sometimes can't stop instructing, correcting, trying to discipline the son, even if he's already 45, but still, you know. Yes, yes. And this often leads to tension also, you know, because especially a man doesn't want to be, you know, ordered around by his mother anymore, you know. So yeah, the very important thing to understand that we have to take off this hat and cultivate this detachment, you know. Yes. Yeah, so, or even, I mean, here in this temple, well, we have 1 or 2 brahmacharis, right, at the temple. How many do you have in Saffron there? 2. Yeah, this I am a brahmachari hat. That's a pretty big one too for most brahmacharis, you know. Being in Saffron, It brings quite some glory along. And I mean, I don't want to minimize, from being a brahmachari is glorious in these modern days of Kali Yuga. But yeah, sometimes people get so attached to it. And even though they're actually not really situated and the mind may not be like a brahmachari anymore, but that attachment just is in the way, and people often can't throw this attachment overboard, and then people naturally think, oh, what will everybody think? So what, especially if we have these thoughts, what will everybody think? This is definitely the false ego there, Yeah, so have you been in Saffron, Prabhu? Or you were? How many years? 1.5. Oh, well, that's not so long. Some people are 5, 8, 10 years in Saffron, and boo, it's like a huge step for them to just, give it up. It's a humbling journey to put on white and get married, especially the longer you've been in Saffron, It's a whole thing for people, Yeah. Yeah, so, I'm sure we all have some hats which we are really hanging on to. And I mean, I do want to share one little story just to illustrate how deep these attachments can be. There's one person who is very senior and has a high position, and I'm a little friends with that person. So I was talking to that person once, and the idea was in the air that this person may have to give up their position. And I was just saying, well, there is life beyond being ... I'm not saying what. There's life beyond being this and this and this. And then the person said, yeah, all right, but what am I then? And I said, well, just a Vaishnava, servant. Yeah, okay, but still, I mean, who am I then? And I didn't know what to say, and the person is senior anyway, so it's not my position to, instruct them or something. But I was just thinking to myself, wow, that's how we identify with these titles and positions. And we can almost fall into an identity crisis, if we have to give up that post. Who am I then? We can fall into some hole there or something, Yes. So, and sometimes we may also have this experience, how difficult it is to give up a position. Let's imagine we are the head pujari or whatever it may be. And then our authority comes and says, oh, we're thinking that maybe somebody else should do that service now. So if we are simply humble servant, then this will not be an issue, right? Then we will say, okay, fine, I thought I can serve you like this the best, but if you have some other idea, no problem, just let me know. All I want to do is serve. And then giving up a position will not be a big deal, right? But unfortunately, it's often not like that, And, we're hanging on to the position and we fight and, we're attached. We don't want to let go. And then sometimes some politics starts and conflict. Oh, my God, it can almost be a whole thing to convince somebody to give up their position, I've observed this over 38 years in ISKCON full time. You meet all kinds of situations. And I mean, not that I want to criticize, but I just want to make the diagnose here, that's, coming from a medical background. So that's always my approach in preaching. Let's make the diagnose. So what's the medicine? And are we taking the treatment? Not only talking about it, but actually taking it. Yeah, so I mean, I've been observing these things and scratching my head thinking, wow, something is missing, something is missing here. Yes. Yeah, and I mean, it's very clear if we think ourselves to be something which we are not, that would bring along a lot of anxieties and fears, right? Right. Yes, definitely. You imagine you are a servant at a king's court. So, and then one day you proclaim, so actually now I'm the king. Would be quite a bit of anxiety, how to convince everybody that I'm the king now. And what if they realize I'm actually not the king? And oh my God, you would have sleepless nights, right? And then you say, okay, I was just joking. I'm actually not the king. Thank God, what a relief, I can just be my humble self. I don't have to try and pretend and project how great I am and that I'm something which I'm actually not, So very clear, as long as we, have this false ego influencing us and we think ourselves to be something which we are not, we cannot be peaceful. Very clear. So, and as we dissolve the false ego, we become more and more peaceful in any situation, Yes. So that's what comes along when we actually dissolve and subdue the false ego, Yes. And Prabhupada gives this nice example. I think I mentioned it already in another class. But yeah, it is so good. Prabhupada says, life in the material world is like a nonsensical stage performance. I really like that one. That's really what it is. Nonsensical stage performance, We can imagine every lifetime on the stage. And yes, we play our role. We really take it in. So this life, I'm an Indian man, so important, so many important things to do, so busy, running, so busy. And then death comes, curtain closes, show is over. And then curtain opens again. Next nonsensical stage performance. So this time I'm a German woman. Ooh, I take it really in. I'm German, I'm a woman. I've got so many important things to do. Running. No time. Busy. Same thing again. Curtain closes. Show is over. Then maybe next life, dog in Sweden, barking. Wow. So the dog also has a dog's mind, dog's intelligence, dog's false ego. Come in. Yeah, so dog also has dog's mind, dog's intelligence, dog's false ego. Definitely dogs have quite a prominent false ego, right? They really take it in. I'm the dog here. I have to protect and bark and bite and whoa, and this is my property here and so on, completely, Yeah, so, and that's how it goes, lifetime after lifetime. And the false ego, this false identification is actually what keeps us trapped and entangles us lifetime after lifetime, Yes. 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 There is something else. I do want to briefly discuss one verse from Bhagavad Gita, but maybe we'll just see at this point if we have any questions just about what we presented, not how to dissolve it and this and that. That's all coming, especially tomorrow, if we want to meet one more time tomorrow. then tomorrow I will get, today is just the introduction, so we understand a little bit more what this false ego is and how it is manifesting and so on. So, yeah, so are there any questions just until now? Yes, Praveen. Yes, yes, yes. Like, I'm sure we all know the situation when some monologue, some dialogue goes around and around and around and around in our head, and we just can't drop it. We just can't let it go, right? You have that experience sometimes, or is it only me who has that? No. Yes. So whenever something goes around in circles, guaranteed false ego behind it. Yes. Yes. The false ego pushes us, to be right, or when we get offended, and then that goes around in our heads. Oh, they shouldn't have treated me like this, and oh, and they said this, and oh, I said that, and always the false ego. Or when we made some mistake, we looked a little foolish, dropping a whole tray of the birthday cake or whatever, and boo, and everybody, oh no, and so after that, this may also go around in circles there. Oh God, how could this happen? And so it's a false ego, every time when we find ourselves in the situation with something where we just can't drop something and park it, and and it's going in circles. Yeah, so that's how the false ego uses the mind and also the intelligence. That the intelligence starts thinking, oh, they shouldn't have said that, and actually, oh, what a shame I said this and that, and and it goes in circles, Or we try to analyze, how could that have happened, and oh, and I looked so foolish, and oh, how embarrassing, and so false ego uses mind and intelligence, and keeps us occupied. I mean, especially also when people get offended, sometimes people carry these grudges for 20 years, they can't forget and forgive, and it's the false ego crying out for justice, Yes. When we can't forget and forgive and move on, and we hang on to it, it's a whole false ego thing. I mean, in the false ego book, of course, there's so much more which we don't have time for to discuss. When I give the seminar in Mayapur, I usually give it over 3 or sometimes even 4 days, 2.5 hours every session, if you really want to get more detailed into it. And in the book, there's a whole chapter on forgiving, and some forgiveness meditations and so on, how we can more easily forgive, because, it's a false ego blocking us. And sometimes for many years. And when we keep this luggage until the moment of death, it's a good risk that we have to do one more round in the material world, So all this has to be worked through, not only the attachments and attractions, but the aversions too. Aversions are also material, some kind of material attachments. We are attached to be averse, So this all has to be given up, Yeah. And I mean, the whole process of Krishna consciousness really targets the subtle body, actually. That's why Krishna always says, think of me, focus your mind on me, meditate on me. always remember me and never forget me, and you know. So it really targets the mind and intelligence, and also false ego, you know. But if people carry some heavy traumas, you know, some childhood traumas, I usually advise them to take additionally some counseling, some therapy, you know, just to speed up the process a bit, you know. Yes. Do we have any other points? Yes.
Hey Krishna, we have devotees online.
Okay. How many do we have there, just out of interest? 12. Wow. Okay. Amazing. But they probably haven't switched on their video. Show me. Turn your computer. No, like that, I can't see it. The gallery. Switch on the gallery. Yes, I want to see some smiling faces there on the internet, not just some holds with names. If people don't switch on their video, it usually means they're not even attentively listening. So switch on. I'm looking at the computer. Switch on your videos. Sometimes people are just logging in just to see oh yeah, my name is there, but then, you know. Oh yeah, some people are switching on their video. Hare Krishna. Thank you for showing your smiling face. Okay, a few more following. Good, good. Yes, yes, good. Yeah, so.
Sometimes we think that, oh, I wish I was different. I'm not wired like this. Why am I like this? I wish I'm more easygoing. And so is that like our nature? What's the distinguishment between our nature versus our false ego? Is it something we can train to change?
Yes. I mean, that is a good point. What we usually think to be our nature is definitely not our nature as spirit souls. But it's our luggage, our baggage, our conditioning. Our real nature as spirit souls is something completely different. You know, even when people say, oh, I'm an introvert, I don't like to be with people. Oh, well, how will we fit into the spiritual world then? There's an unlimited amount of entities all cooperating in harmony and pure bhakti to make the most pleasing arrangement for the Lord. You know, I'm not sure how much room there is for separatism or something. You know, so we have to learn to fit in, you know? Yes, yes. So, and people often hide behind this and they say, oh, that's my nature, too bad. But no, it's our conditioning and we want to work on it. We want to give it up. We don't want to hang on to this luggage and think, oh, that's me. But no, we have to give it up, you know? But you touched upon one thing, which, brings me to another point, which is interesting, that the false ego is not, there's two ways how the false ego affects us. So one way, the more common one we can say, is that we think ourselves to be really cool and great and fantastic and so unique and special and extraordinary. And we are overconfident that, yes, I can do this. And we push ourselves to the front and all that. So that's one effect. But then there is also another one. When we become all mental and insecure and full of complexes, this is also the false ego. Interestingly, we might not even identify it, you know. Yeah. So it comes about because our false ego would like us to look really good. But due to our karma or talents, abilities, we can't live up to that expectation, you know, which the false ego is setting. So we can't be as cool and great as we want to be. The false ego is pushing us to be. So, and then as a result, we get all mental and insecure, you know? Yes. So it's also the false ego. Yeah, interesting. Let's take an example. Let's imagine, you know, we are not such a good singer, but we would love to sing just as nice as all the other devotees do, you know. So we can get all mental, oh, I can't sing, and oh, you know, and insecure and mental and all that. But actually, when we look at things a little deeper, we understand that Krishna is not interested in the external offering. He's interested in the bhakti, you know. And maybe that person who has such a musical talent, maybe that person has less bhakti in the heart, maybe more pride. Look at me, I'm such a good musician, you know. But we may actually have more humility and bhakti, even though our singing may not be so fantastic, you know. So when we understand that, then we will not be mental and insecure, and we will say, okay, whatever I have, I offer with love and devotion, and I hope the devotees will tolerate my offering, even though it may not be so pleasing or something, you know. And I've experienced this in holy name retreats, that sometimes, you know, we didn't have such an expert kirtanier for the evening kirtans. And then some devotees were singing, some were even singing off tune, you know. But there was such humility. Okay, I actually can't really sing, but okay, let me just cry out to Krishna and serve the devotees here and apply what we discussed during the day. So let me just somehow give this a try, you know. And then these kirtans were often very sweet and special and deep because of that purity and the bhakti, you know. Yeah, so we have to understand the false ego is always attached to the externals, because that gives a boost to the false ego. That's what the false ego runs after. And that's what, in the modern days, people only look at the externals, you know, but they dismiss the internals because they're not so pleasing to the false ego, you know. Yeah, so good to understand, you know, that how this false ego affects us in two ways, you know. Because often we think of false ego, we just think it's pride, you know. But no, there's so many more subtleties there. The mere identification with a certain role, that's already false ego. And even if somebody is all shy and can't open their mouth and always worried, what will everybody think of me, being really self-conscious, that's also the false ego, you know? Yes. Do we have anything else? One online, okay. Read it to us, please.
Hi Krishna, this is from Bhakti Mataji. How do we even identify what kind of false ego we have in a subtle form?
What kind?
Basically, how do we understand and realize that we have a certain type of false?
Well, I wouldn't distinguish what kind of false ego we have. Well, we have a human, according to the human body, you know, and not the dog's false ego. But, you know, I have not heard of any different kinds. You know, we have to understand it differently. The false ego simply affects us in all different ways. That's what we are trying to discover here, you know. Yes, but it's not that, oh, he's got that kind of false ego and I have this kind of false ego. No, there's one kind, you know, one kind of mind, one kind of intelligence. It's an element, Yeah? So, and it affects us in so many different ways. So many. I wrote a whole book about it. And we only have the time to touch upon a few, you know. There's so many, you know. Like, for example, I mean, the false ego can get its foot in any little gap, you know. Yes, and contaminates. The best idea when presented with false ego is poisoned. Nobody wants to hear it. Even this sacred relationship with Guru can be contaminated through false ego. My Guru is the best. And because he is my Guru, that's why I am the next best. Yes, it's all going on, you know. And we may not even pinpoint it. We may think, oh, well, he's just worshipping his guru. What's wrong? You know, but then we feel, no, something is wrong somehow, you know. But if we don't know, then we can't identify it, you know. Yes, yes. Yeah, so these things are going on. Or my deities. There can be a whole competition who's got the most exotic deities in their homes. You know, yes, yeah, all these things are going on, you know, that the deities almost become like some status symbol or something, you know, like what car you're driving, or what deities you have or something. You know, of course, it's not that it has to be like that, but when the false ego gets into it, oh, my deities are so special, and because they're my deities, that's why I am so special, because they're mine. So we use Guru, we use the deities to glorify ourselves and bring attention to ourselves, you know. Yes. And we may not even identify it, you know. Yeah. Yeah, so there's so many different ways how the false ego affects us and poisons everything, you know. All right, let me just go on, since it is getting gradually late. So I do want to discuss this one verse from Bhagavad Gita, 1858. There Krishna gives us two choices how to act. So he says, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. So that's option number one. Then comes option number two. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Right? So let us go back and have a look at these two options for acting in this world. So option number one, if you become conscious of me, of Krishna, so that means, well, what does it mean? Let me ask you, what does it mean? Yeah, but what does it mean basically, acting through becoming conscious of Krishna? We understand our position. Jiva Srupa Krishna Nityadas. I'm just tiny, insignificant, little servant here. Yes. And that consciousness we act. That's what it means. Acting in consciousness of Krishna. Actually, to understand our eternal position and acting in that. Right? And of course, also to accept Krishna's recommendations and instructions. So that's what it means to act in consciousness of Krishna. So, and if we act like that, then this huge ocean of material suffering shrinks to the size of a hoof print of a calf. In Bhagavatam, we have this nice analogy, So if you filled with water, I forgot that. So hoof print of a calf filled with water. When you go for a walk and you step over that, you're not going to notice anything, right? No big deal. So that's the amazing effect, that this ocean of material existence, which is insurmountable, you can't get out, you can't overcome it. There's a nice BBT picture of these high waves, and then this person is drowning there, throwing up the arms, and then the Lord is coming on Garuda there and reaching out, So yes, that's our position, Without Krishna, we are lost. We no chance to get out. So, and by acting in consciousness of Krishna, this insurmountable ocean becomes like the hoofprint of a calf filled with water. Very amazing. So now the other way of acting is, but if, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, blocks the ears, blocks the intelligence, not hearing Krishna or Krishna's devotees, we will be lost. At the latest, at the moment of death, when we have to do another round in the material world, but usually so many times before already, we are lost. And this, again, this is a very practical point when we reflect on our life and we think of situations where we were, in some unpleasant situation. If we are a little introspective, we can realize, at least afterwards, that we acted through false ego. Yeah, we wanted to try and prove something and be the hero and be right, or we were running after some name fame thing or some sense gratification or whatever it may be. So, yeah, and then as a result, we create our trouble, therefore our constant companion and troublemaker. Yes, so very practical, It's also very practical in a sense that we can really keep this in the back of our mind, that being a servant always offers the perfect solution to any problem, If we find ourselves in a distressing situation or where we are upset about something, good to make these 2 steps back and ask ourselves, am I a servant here, or am I trying to be something else, the controller, the enjoyer, Let us imagine an example. We are a traveling preacher. We are scheduled to visit some community, and so many lectures are planned. So then a more senior person may come, a sannyasi, and then the temple president says, oh, I think we should let him give the Sunday feast, right? So if we are in the mood of humble servant, we will say, yes, sure, no problem. All I want to do is serve. I can serve by hearing, I can serve by speaking. It's all the same to me, But if we are not in the mood of servant, then we will get upset and agitated. Oh, that's not fair. It's the only Sunday program I could have given, and I was scheduled, and he didn't announce himself, and boo, Yes. So a simple example how being a servant always offers the perfect solution. Yes. So now one thing is that from this verse, we can also understand that there are 2 motivating forces in life, right? There is the ambitious false ego motivating force, where we want to become a certain designation, a doctor, lawyer, guru, sannyasi, traveling preacher, world famous kirtaniya. He's striving for that. I want to become that. So that is kind of the false ego motivation, right? But then as Vaishnavas, we should cultivate that mood of all I want to do is serve. Yes. And it's interesting to understand that if we just give ourselves in service with sincerity and we serve with heart and soul, then Paramatma, Krishna in the heart, recognizes that and will open the right opportunities, the right doors at the right time for us to progress. Yeah, it really works that way. So in Krishna consciousness, no need to chalk out some whole career or something, because if we have that approach, very easily we invite the false ego, the ambitiousness there, But in spiritual life, it's not a matter, the empowerment does not come through the false ego, but through blessings. It has to come from above, It's a whole different process of being empowered than in the material world, So in the material world, success is measured in how ambitious you are and how much you can push yourself to the front and step on everybody else's head and get up there, But in spiritual life, it's not like that. It doesn't work like that, There, all we have to do is serve with heart and soul. And everything else will eventually manifest at the right time. Yeah. So that's a very different path, And I find this important for devotees to understand, because very easily we are so conditioned by this material ambitiousness, and then very easily we bring this into our spiritual life, and we think this is also the way how we get up there, and become successful, but it's not. It's not. Yes. Actually, we need that empowerment of the Lord, of Prabhupada, of Guru, the blessings, and we get them by serving with heart and soul, no matter what it may be. That attracts the blessings. And it's also practically very logical, naturally our superiors, our authorities, they want Krishna consciousness to spread. So if we actually serve and we are responsible and dutiful and reliable, then naturally, more service opportunities will come to us, right? Very practical also, Yeah, so it's good to understand this, And of course, false ego is not all bad. Let me also emphasize that. It does have some good function too, because at least it gets us going. At least it motivates us initially, Because when we come to Krishna consciousness, of course, the false ego motivation is much stronger than the motivating force of I want to serve and please Guru and the Vaishnavas. That motivating force is not so strong. Of course not, because we are not pure devotees, So initially, the false ego gives us that sense of duty and responsibility and and it motivates. And we can see this very distinctly. I'm not sure how it is here in Portland, but very often we can see that the temple cars are not very well maintained. They're bashed around, everybody uses them, nobody services or washes them or cleans them. It's just Krishna's, it's just a temple car. But if it's my car, then I'm very responsible and particular and yeah, so that's why often in temples, where you have a brahmacharya ashram or something, people do give the sense of ownership to people and say, here, this is your car, you are responsible, even, of course, strictly speaking, it's a temple car, but yeah, they just give the sense of ownership to a person, and that is already helpful for the person to maintain the car nicely, I remember I was brahmachari for 4 years in Sydney, and I had my Sankirtan car. I had the keys, and if anybody wanted to use it, they had to ask me for permission and get the keys. And yeah, well, I was cleaning it every Saturday and all that, yeah, we were also asked to do that. So, but yeah, there was some sense of ownership. It's my car, and oh, I hear some funny noises. I think I have to service it, But if it's just nobody's car, then people just drive it until it falls apart and nobody feels responsible, right? Yes. So false ego definitely has some good part in it too. So we can say, yes, false ego, eventually this motivation has to be transformed and given up, but not too quickly. Because otherwise, if we just give up the false ego without having developed the motivating force of wanting to serve Krishna with heart and soul, then very easily we become lazy and we lethargic and we end up in tamaguna and do nothing, So that's why, false ego is not all bad, and definitely also in family life, in grhastha life, the false ego is a strong motivating force. It's all about I, me, and mine, my house and my family, my children, and my little garden, and I have to keep it all nice and be responsible. Yes, it's all I, me, and mine, But then the purifying duty is to give in charity, to open your home for the Vaishnavas, be hospitable and receive gas. And that's why one of the main purifying duties of grhastha is indeed receiving gas and feeding them. That's what you will find out in the family life as an ashram, Secrets of Success. Yeah, there is a nice purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Prabhupada says that when he thinks back of his childhood, there was not a single day where his parents did not at least receive 4 guests for lunch, minimum of 4 guests. And, Bengali style means some days 6 or 8 or 10, but never less than 4 every day, yes. Yeah, in the Western world, this is almost unknown, I mean, those in Indian bodies, they still have something of it in the blood. But we Western people, we don't even know about it. What to speak or follow it, Yes. Very important part, because that exactly purifies this I, me, and mine. That you don't cook just for yourself behind closed doors for my family. Then very easily family life becomes very selfish and miserly. But no, you're meant to, there's also, we know the instruction, you're meant to go out and call anybody hungry, please come and take prasad. And only after everybody has eaten, then you sit down and eat, Yeah, so this is a very important part of purifying this I, me, and mine, And I have observed this, we have in ISKCON, we have some rural communities, some farms, where nobody owns anything. And it doesn't attract capable people who can get something happening materially, They rather do their own thing. I have come this across so many times that people say, oh, I want to start a village project, a farm project. And I'm always thinking, God, Why do they all want to do it themselves? And I've been always saying, better you go and be a part of a farm that's already there. There's already deities there. All our farm projects are struggling. So why creating your own thing? But that's a typical also for the man, especially because it's built into the male nature that he wants to have his thing. He wants to create something, you know? Yes. And yeah, I've observed these farm communities where there's nobody owns anything. They usually don't really get off the ground, you know, because it attracts people who can't get anything together, you know. Yes. So better, and that's why I'm often saying to these farm projects, you have to privatize some aspects. You know, let's say garden cafe, privatize it, give it to a grhastha as a project, you know, and they give some percentage to the temple, you know, and then it will flourish because then the person will think, okay, how can I get this happening? Let's make ice cream, pizza, chips, this, that, you know, or they get into it. But if you make it a temple department, it will not take off, you know. Then, oh, sorry, can't do it. I have to visit my parents on that weekend and this and that and this and that, you know. But if it's my thing and I get some profit, that will motivate. Yes, and that's how you get Varnashram together, you know. You privatize all kinds of aspects there. Let people make some money on it. What's the problem? And they all give something to the temple, you know. You can make a written contract, no problem, you know, and then it will flourish. Yes, but if the temple wants to control everything, especially with farm projects, it will not flourish, you know. Yes. You need some Vaishyas to get it all happening, you know. Yes. Yes. All right. So let us conclude, you know, by saying that, yeah, false ego has also some good aspect there, but it is our constant companion and troublemaker. All our mental tortures and inner battles and what we are all facing, you know, it all goes back to the false ego, giving us a tough time, you know, and we are all taking it in. We all were listening to all this whispering there, what the false ego is doing, you know. Yeah, so, and of course, family life can be the battlefield of false egos. Oh my God, people, you know, can ruin their whole marriage relationships and get divorced just because of false ego battles. Who is right, who is wrong, and just see, I told you, didn't I? And oh, it was my idea, and oh, and why don't you listen to me? And I know it. You know, yes. Because I give all these seminars, often people come with their marriage problems. And sometimes people say, oh, I don't know why we are arguing over these stupid little things. They're usually not even so important. Well, yeah, I know. It's a false ego, you know, false ego prompting us to, you know, say and do things and which we shouldn't say and do and all that. Yeah. Okay, so do we have any more questions online? Nobody here? Let's give first priority to those who are personally present. But if there's not, yes?
We grew up with a lot of encouragement from our parents. Like now also when kids do something, we say, oh, good job. And that goes on. But sometimes when we get married, we don't get that anymore, right? Oh, good job, you did that, or pat on our back. How do we, but then when we don't get that, agitation builds quickly. So how do we...
what if we don't get that?
Agitation builds.
Oh,
I'm not getting recognized, no encouragement and so forth. How do we get past that? Like, is not getting like a good feedback the best way to get rid of that, you know, thought to get a feedback? How to purify ourselves from that? I understand it's a condition.
Yes, Yeah, I mean, in the false ego book, there's one chapter, you know, the art of glorifying devotees, you know, that, yeah, we do all need appreciation, but we should offer that without feeding the false ego. There's an art to it, you know. So, yeah, sometimes people misunderstand. They think, okay, we don't want to boost people's egos, so no appreciation because it may boost their egos. So, no, we all do need appreciation and encouragement, you know, but there's an art to it, how to offer it. And the, you know, like, for example, it has become very common in ISKCON. And I mean, in the early days, this was never done, you know, but now it is the normal thing to do, that we always make these announcements, who cooked, who did this, that, and ki jai, ki jai, ki jai, the drums are going, you know. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we never did this in the early days, you know. And I personally, I mean, it may be a personal thing, but I find there are better ways of appreciating devotees, because it can become very mechanical and almost organizational or something, that, oh yeah, we have to read out who did this, who did that, ki jai, ki jai, ki jai, ki jai. So now finished, you know. I find it so much sweeter and more personal to give that feedback personally, one-to-one. And the psychology is also, the bigger the audience is, the more people hear my glorious activities, the more it feeds the ego, right? But if you just go up to a person and say, oh, thank you so much for cooking once again the wonderful Sunday feast, this means a lot to me, you know, then this is really a loving exchange, you know, and we let the person, in a humble mood, we let the person know that we really value their service, you know. So I find this so much nicer, and it feeds less the false ego, you know, because it's a one-to-one thing, you know. And then we can also give some little feedback for improvement, that we say, yeah, thank you so much for cooking the Sunday feast, means a lot to me. Dal was a little salty, but everything was great, especially the paneer sabji, and I saw everybody enjoyed it, you know. So then, you know, that we balance it a little bit. And the same, we mentioned it the other day, I think, the same also should be done when we correct somebody, that we don't pounce on people and just bash them, and, you know, but that we first offer our appreciation. I know you've been working so hard, and we're so happy to see you every day or every week, and so, and then we offer the correction, and then again we finish on something positive, you know, because we have that saying, he who glorifies us is our enemy, and he who chastises and corrects us is our best friend. Because of that reason, because this is, especially when the glorification is almost like some flattering, you know, when people actually don't really mean it so seriously, but they just offer these flattering words. And often we offer flattering words to be glorified ourselves. It's actually a subtle business deal there, because we all like to be glorified. So then when we offer some glorification, then the other person thinks, oh, this person must be really advanced, because finally they understand my glory, right? So then, oh, that makes us look really good, you know? Yes. So, and then we offer some similar glorification back. Oh, Prabhu, you are so fantastic. And hoping that if I massage his ego a bit, then he will continue glorifying me. You know, so like that, you have this whole business deal there of massaging each other's false egos, you know. And it's very subtle, but you can feel, oh, this is just some fake thing there and some flattering words, and it's not with sincerity and humility and genuine appreciation, you know. So yeah, we have to be careful that we don't just engage in massaging each other's egos there, you know. Yeah. All right, so maybe we should leave it at that, because you have to go to work again tomorrow. We are at the beginning of the week. So now the question is, what do we do tomorrow? Is there anybody who would host us again? One more session? Sorry? Well, it doesn't have to. I spoke to HH Niranjana Prabhu. He just said nobody stepped forward to host it. But I find it so much more enlivening to actually speak to people rather than sitting on my computer with all black holes there and nobody switching on their videos and all that. Not so enlivening for me, definitely. So if there's anybody who welcomes us again, no, that's useless, obviously. No, somebody who lives close enough. Or, I mean, who again was it who lives here? Or she's outside, huh, with the kids. Or you're the husband. Well, I mean, I don't want to push it, but if you're happy to host us again, I'm sure nobody will mind. Or can you clarify it now? Because we should announce it. But I mean, if yeah, just to ask your wife quickly, if it is too troublesome, then no problem. She should say honestly, you know. Just go and ask her quickly, so she doesn't have to say no in front of everybody. Yeah, because I mean, it's not mandatory that it has to be online or something, you know, because we had a pretty nice discussion here like that. So if somebody receives us tomorrow, we can do the similar thing tomorrow. Or anybody else who lives not too far or something.
Yeah, I hate to say I work from 7 to 5 and it might be a little bit odd.
Oh, yeah. No, then no problem, no problem. Or is anybody else here of the audience who wants to have it? I mean, we can also cancel it, you know. It's not that we have to have it. I'm also happy to have a free evening. But I have to say I would not feel so enlivened, you know, to do it. You know, at least if 3 or 4 people are there would be nice, you know. So it's the duty of the grhastha to open your homes and receive people. All right, anyway, then we'll just think about it or something, whatever. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanande. Yeah, and if there's still somebody who didn't get the books they want to get, so today maybe